What's up, guys? I'm Ace, and I'm here today to talk to you about Parfums de Marly HEROD. Now, this fragrance, if you're not terribly familiar, is a niche fragrance, which means that it's not from a fashion designer like Dior or Chanel. This is from Parfums de Marly, a house that only makes fragrances. That does mean that it is very expensive, like most niche fragrances. This is a $300 bottle that I'm holding here. Now, if you're not accustomed to niche fragrances, that is an eye-watering price tag. And I'll get into why it costs that kind of money. And I'll get into if it's worth you paying that kind of money for it. But again, the name is Herod, and if you are of the Christian tradition, that name you'll kind of squint at that name, because the King Herod in the Bible was famous for murdering children. Not really what you want associated with anything you're purchasing, baby killer. But the reason it's named Herod is because Parfums de Marly names all their fragrances after famous racing horses, and Herod was the one of the three father horses, forget, like the three sires that all modern thoroughbred racehorses are descended from. So Herod is one of the three fathers of all modern thoroughbred racing horses. So, in other words, this is kind of like, it's almost like they're saying that their future fragrances will be based upon this one. And this was actually the famous that got Parfums de Marly on the map. So the name could not be more appropriate. And in a lot of ways, the future fragrances, like for instance, Parfums de Marly Leighton, Parfums de Marly Pegasus, are in many ways based upon that core DNA. And if you try any Parfums de Marly fragrance today, you can detect, you can tell it when you're smelling it that it is from the house. And this is the one that started that tradition, and it's the one that kind of set the standard for the house. So the name could not be more appropriate. And this came out in 2013, and in a lot of ways, you have to think they're going up against houses like Creed, that has been around since before America was a nation. That prestige doesn't even begin to cut it, what they're going against with this price and in the bracket they're going for. So they've got some balls to say that we, the newcomers, have made something that all future fragrances will be based upon when we're a nobody. To name it Herod and essentially say that this is the new standard upon which everything else will be built could even be considered offensive in a lot of ways. But the crazy thing is, they were right, and it ended up blowing up, and ended up blowing up their house. And now today, you mentioned Parfums de Marly along with Creed. Again, a house that has been around longer than America has been a nation. A house with some serious prestige and blows away Chanel's and Dior's, and is just in its own league with the very best in the world. And they were nobodies 10 years ago. So it kind of proved that a new house could get into the fragrance market and actually make it, and they have enabled a lot of new indie and niche houses to come onto the market, because now people realize, and investors realize, hey, this can actually work. If we have a good enough product, people will buy it. And YouTube had a lot to do with this brand being successful. They actually paid attention to YouTube reviewers and actually sent them product to review, and it was a lot of why they became successful. And now they're among the top niche brands in the world, often mentioned in the same sentence as Killian and Creed. And that's pretty big. Now, I'll move on from just swooning over Parfums de Marly for a minute, and talk about the notes a little bit. The notes being, the smell you get from this. So, the main notes to me are in order that you get them, the most prominent to least prominent: vanilla, tobacco, cinnamon, and incense. That's kind of the order of potency. And this is fairly linear, so you kind of get a similar vibe all the way through. Now this is based upon ISO-E Super, and I can tell that it's based upon ISO-E Super just from the way the the scent cloud kind of moves and the way it behaves in the air. Isoi Super is a synthetic aroma chemical that smells kind of like sandalwood. And that's kind of the synthetic base that allows it to last that long, and then the naturals are built upon that. And I think they did a fantastic job. And it's important to remember in aroma chemistry that a lot of times synthetics are more expensive than naturals. Natural's not always better. Quality is quality. Sometimes natural has to do with that, sometimes it doesn't. But this is the highest possible quality that a tobacco vanilla fragrance could possibly be, and it is, in my mind, without a doubt, the best tobacco and vanilla fragrance, maybe the best tobacco fragrance ever made. And they knew that when they made it too, which is funny, and that's why they called it Herod. It's the new basis for what future fragrances like this will be based on. The Parfums de Marly themselves describe it as an ode to vanilla. I thought that was interesting, an ode to vanilla. And I agree with that. Vanilla is the most prominent thing, and it's just highlighting the most interesting and kind of enigmatic qualities of that vanilla. And just using a little bit of cinnamon here to highlight that aspect, and a little bit of tobacco to highlight that aspect. And the incense goes really well with the way that it kind of flows through the air. It kind of comes and goes, and that incense, that smoky incense, goes perfectly with that. It's almost like you're burning it in the room with you, the whole fragrance. It's an awesome experience, and it is an experience. It is worth the price tag, and that is a big price tag, and you don't need to pay the full retail for it. You can find it discounted, but even if you had to pay retail for it, and even if I had to pay $300 for it, I would do it. It's worth it. It is worth the full retail price, in my opinion. Even though that is one heck of a retail price. Now, go ahead and get to performance. The longevity on this one is 8 to 10 hours, which is great. That is what I like to see, and that is what I've come to expect from Parfums de Marly. I would expect nothing less, and I've never gotten anything less. 8 to 10 hours, that is perfect. Projection is moderate. It is not overwhelming. It does not fill up a room, but it is in the beginning about arm's length, and then it tapers down. It never quite gets to be a complete skin scent until maybe the 6-hour mark, but it's a tame projection. It's not huge. It's moderate, fairly tame, but it is out there. People can notice it. It's not a skin scent at all, and it lasts a long time. Really a big fan of this one. One thing you will get from a lot of people, especially untrained noses, not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but untrained noses will pick up a cherry note that's not really there. That cherry note is just an aspect of the tobacco. It's think about it like it's like a cherry pipe tobacco that they're using, that tobacco. It's just an aspect of the tobacco that kind of combines with the vanilla. Because they are using real vanilla. It's Madagascar vanilla, the real deal that they're using. And kind of creates a cherry note that's not quite there, but you will pick it up, and I picked that up too. Like, I see what they're saying, it's just not, I can tell that it's not actually a cherry note. It's kind of some of the aroma chemicals just doing a little thing, but it's very pleasant though. That kind of not a cherry note is very pleasant, even if, you smell and you're like, oh, it's cherry and vanilla, that's what you pick up. It's still pleasant even if that is what you're getting. But more time you spend with it, you'll kind of realize, oh no, that's the tobacco, and you'll kind of pick up darker fast. It's one of those that's more complex, and your nose needs time to kind of adjust to it. But it's not one that, on first sniff, you're gonna not like it. It smells very good. It just smells even better the more you get to know it, and the more your brain is able to kind of comprehend what's going on with it. Because it is very deep and very complex. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on was kind of what's the cultural relevance of this kind of perfumery? Like, how does this kind of fit into our modern world? We're not, there aren't lords and ladies and whatever. It's just kind of their, like, the imagery they try to evoke is, a world that doesn't exist anymore. And, Creed, they were founded on making fragrances for British royalty. The actual British king was the first one to commission a fragrance from Creed. and that's who they're competing against, and that really doesn't exist in our modern world. So who is this for? I would say this is targeted towards your successful business people, basically, that upper middle class category of people. It's the equivalent of a nice watch or wearing nicer clothes. It's just meant to be a status symbol, right? This is the status symbol, and that price tag is there on purpose to make it that status symbol. It's, you wear your nice watch, you got your Orient, your automatic watch, and you got your nice button-down shirt that's either a designer brand or just a nice button-down shirt, and your designer jeans. You've got your Parfums de Marly or your Creed, right? It's that kind of prestige, that status symbol, or a nice car. It's meant to be that. That's why this exists. It's meant to be a status symbol. That being said, this is also leaning towards the artistic side of perfumery without quite going fully artistic. So this is meant to be used as you would use a designer fragrance. This isn't just artistic. This isn't made for the sake of doing a thing. It is actually meant to be used, meant to be experienced, and in a lot of ways for the people around you, not just for yourself, which artistic perfumery is mostly for yourself, not really for the people around you. This is for both, which is hard to do, and they've done it very well, and I think it's awesome. And that's leading right into my rating on this one, and this is a 10 out of 10. This is an honest-to-God masterpiece. Truly one of the greats of all time. Like I said, maybe even the greatest of all time tobacco fragrance. This is number one on my fall list, for good reason. This is going to be in the top 5 on the winter list too. I can already tell you, I've worn the heck out of this year. Could not be happier with it. And this is kind of the basis that a lot of these future fragrances from the same house were based upon, and you couldn't have a better basis to build a brand, and they've been doing a great job with it, and I hope they keep it up. From everything I've heard, in this year 2020, even the newest release, Pegasus Exclusive, I've heard great things. I'm excited to get my nose on it. I'll get a review on that one too, and also these ones behind me. But I felt like this one was deserving of the first review because it is kind of the rock upon which the brand was built. So that's about all I have. Have you tried Herod from Parfums de Marly? Have you tried anything else from the house? And if so, what do you think? I'd really like to hear you guys' opinions on the house. It is quite possibly my favorite house overall. It is. I have the most fragrances of them of any niche house. Even though they're expensive, they're one that I just can't stop picking them up. And there's still more that I want from them. Man, they're so good. What do you guys think about them? Yeah, that's about all I got for today. If there are any of these behind me that you would like a review on, let me know. If there's anything that you don't see here that you want a review on, let me know. I very well might have it, especially if it's a designer. I have lots of designer stuff. Just let me know, and I'll try to accommodate. All right, you guys have a great one.